to pray. There's no angels where I go, only pieces that are broken, scattered dreams across the floor. I'm home.
Alrighty, hello everybody, this is Kira's show here. Now, hopefully I can get this uploaded in 1 or 2 parts. I wanted to try and make a hour special, but with how late it is, if I need to, I will stop at a certain point. So, let us begin. Now, whenever we last left off, I do believe that we had a bit of a challenge. Who can make it to the car first? Along with Deku actually instigating it. He has the keys and he just informed them that they need to go. Now, Deku, he has a head start, along with Toga actually being after them. Now, Momo, she's quite aware that she needs to catch up. But hey, you can't really blame her. Now, she knows that those two will have to rest at some point, so she wants to at least do a light jog. Now, with that being said, they would begin. Deku and Toga are running through the forest. Deku actually deciding to go up, which he finds to be a bit fun. Now, he doesn't really have a lot of training with running through trees, because last time he ran through one, he broke his leg. Yeah, that was not a fun experience. So he wants to stay close to the ground. Toga, however, she sees this as an actual competition, so she's being serious. Actually swing around straight above Deku, as he's running. Eventually coming to a point where she would tackle him to the ground, and begin to try and fight with Deku. Deku actually laughing a bit, as Toga would throw a couple solid punches. Deku being able to block them and actually just slide her body weight away from him, and actually just do a few light jabs. He knows that if he wanted to, he could probably knock her out, but hey, this is supposed to be friendly, so he's at least going to take it easy on them. Because he knows that they both need this. So, eventually, they would have ran about 50 miles. Momo actually not too far behind. These two taking a break. They've been fighting for almost 2 hours, while at the same time trying to make it to their destination. Counterproductive. So, Momo would finally arrive, seeing them, sitting on the ground, and exhausted, asking them what's going on. To which Deku would someone just start laughing, saying that it wasn't in the rule book, but apparently fighting is allowed. Momo understanding just from that sentence alone, and at least having a bit of an idea. Deku thinks about his quirk as an extension of himself. So, scaling walls and everything, not my cup of tea yet. I'm not there, but hey. If fighting's allowed, then I have an idea. Momo beginning to create a whip. Deku actually watching this fall out of her arm. As he gets ready, Momo will begin trying to fight with Deku, throwing the whip outwards as Deku would bring his hand up, blocking the first hit, as Momo began to swing it around more and more and more. Someone actually laughing as Toga begins to cheer her on. Deku is actually a bit more surprised. He didn't think that she'd turn to using weapons, at least not this type of weapons. She did already seem more like a bow staff style of person, so exactly how is this going to work? As Deku would have been memorizing the way she's moving, actually planting his feet firmly, Momo lashing out the whip, Deku being able to bring his hand up and actually move it forwards a bit. and grabbing onto it, as he just yanks on it and starts wrapping it around his arm. As he just holds it there, Momo actually trying to pull against it. Deku getting ready. If he needs to get more serious, then he'll do so. But before that can continue, they would hear leaves break and immediately turn. Toga is trying to sneak off. So, this is where Deku and her would just look at each other. Before Deku just lets go of the whip and starts chasing after her. Momo actually doing the same. She's been saving most of her stamina, while these two have been recovering it. So their little run through the forest would eventually end, after a little bit more time. Now, with that being said, they would get to the car. Deku, he somewhat decided to give Toga the win. So, this is where they would be getting in. Deku actually turning on the car and driving away. These two actually just catching some Z's. After going over what their alleged mission was and who exactly they'll be meeting in public, it was going to be a bit more tricky. Basically, they had to say a specialized code phrase, otherwise, things might get a bit messy. Or, knowing the creed, they won't take them seriously. So, they would be driving away and actually start a road trip. They've got a bit of cash in the car and, well, fake IDs and fake passports. Basically, posing as foreigners on a trip through the country. So, if anything happens, they can just show these passes and get through. Now, Deku, he would be awake for about 3 to 4 hours, driving, until eventually one of these two would wake up. Let's actually say Momo. She wakes up and she's in the back seat, basically sprawled out across the seats, not really wearing seatbelts. She would wake up and see that Toga's still asleep in the passenger seat. So, is Deku going to be okay to drive the rest of the way? It's basically all going to be a while. So they should at least stop and catch some rest. They all need it. Deku's somewhat saying that they have a time schedule. The Creed said if we get there early, then, hey, they'll give us a bit of a reward. Basically, they'll hook us up with some cash, and I won't need to expose my other life to that city. Basically, freaking more people out. It'll allow me to maintain cover as architect. Momo actually asking questions, as they would pull over. Her being a bit confused. Deku asking one simple question. You know how to drive, right? Not really. I'm sort of used to being in the back of those fancy limousines. Yeah. I am a bit aware. So, as these two would change places, Deku basically leaning over and showing her exactly what she needs to do. Put the car in drive, and, well, push down on the gas like this. And your blinker and everything, giving her the basics. As they would pull out of the parking lot. And continue. Momo actually beginning to ask Deku a bit of questions. So, was it easy doing what you do? No, not really. Most of the time I find it to be something I just deal with. Especially after my little broadcast. Then everything else. Huh? Those broadcasts around whenever you were 7 or 8, I think. Not fun. You remember someone calling for help and it showing a man getting hit by something, flying across the room at him, and then, well, a location popping up? Well, yeah, that was just an April Fool's prank. No, it wasn't. That was me calling for help. Everyone thought it was a prank, and heroes actually came to the location. It was a bit more worse. You have Fancy and the other 3. One of them I already killed. Momo actually turning to look at Deku, asking what does he mean. Deku explaining. These people have been seeking him for quite some time, and she knows about that. But does she know about the rest of his scars? Her, well, waiting patiently for an answer, as she checks the next lane and switches into it, getting out from behind the semi-truck hauling something, as she speeds up, saying that she doesn't know exactly what he's been through. But if he'd like to share, then that means that she'll at least be here to listen. Deku continuing where we left off, his past. Deku, he is 8 years old. After the 1 month of brainwashing and, well, tests as Abstergo called them or labeled them, Deku, he refused to use tech. And he somewhat wanted to denounce his quirk, being the reason for all of this. Deku staring down at, well, the pair of goggles Mommy keeps handing him. Mommy explaining that just because you don't like your quirk, or you think your quirk is the problem for all this, doesn't mean you stop using it. Your quirk is something very special. Listen. We will be home, okay? Home very soon. Please stop trying to get rid of those. You're going to need them, actually. Those are more high-tech than I've ever seen. Besides, you're not the only one who's suffered something like this before. Mummy somewhat explained things to Deku. He can reverse engineer it, or at least try making it smaller, and less weird around his face, and around his eyes. So for now, just be careful with them. As Deku would somewhat listen. At least not throwing them away. So, what will be next for them? Mommy usually taking them away and letting Deku be by himself. He understands that the boy just needs some alone time. But at the same time, he does at least need to stay close. Usually, Mommy would at least keep his door open at night. So in case he does hear Deku crying, or well, even hurt or having nightmares, he can at least come running at the first sign of danger. Usually, most nights tend to be so, for roughly around a year, in which Deku, he's gotten better and more serious in his training. Actually performing something Mummy calls his, well, specialized routine. Mummy would show Deku a good way to get out his anger. If he ever has any pent-up aggression, just come into the workout room and start beating on the punching bag. Deku usually doing so a lot. Now, with that, some more time would pass, along with Deku deciding that he needs to step outside for a while. Doing so on a first occasion, stepping onto the rooftop and taking in the view as he takes a deep breath in. Fresh air is something he's not used to. It feels better than what he's been breathing most of the time. It doesn't feel stale, it doesn't feel, well, room temperature. It just feels cold or hot. Usually, either way is good. As Mummy would walk outside too, telling Deku that they need to continue training. As he would take off running, getting Deku to chase after him. The two going on Deku's usual course. Before, Deku was a bit more used to it. Deku seems to be a little bit more happy, and things seem to be looking up. Until one little event happens. Whenever Deku is running, he actually does fall into the ground. And he is confused, looking up to see a man in a mask. So, exactly what is going on here? The man basically grabbing Deku and plunging something into his neck, a needle. The man saying that he's sorry about this, but it needs to happen. Deku falling unconscious. Now, eventually Deku would have woken up, some time later. And well, things are a bit tricky. He is trying to get focused and try and wake up. Momo interrupting him, asking exactly how did this guy do it, or well, what happened to Mummy? To which Deku would explain. He ran ahead. Mummy tried to stop him, but he decided that I needed to at least experience my freedom. Take it in for a while. Ever since that day, I've tried carrying a piece on me. And at least trying to build some tolerance to that type of shit. It's all just something I can't get used to. Show me a needle, I'll show you a blade. That's sort of how I think now. Momo just understanding, as she looks at Toga. Toga woke up some time ago, but she clearly wants to at least listen, and let these two have a private conversation. Momo just staring at her for a second. Toga just looking at her, not saying a word. As she would just say that she gets it. He can continue now. To which Deku would do so. Now, the man in a mask is basically explaining to, well, the fancy man that his little package is secure. So, what do you want me to do with him? Usually, I do assassination orders, but, well, this is just a child's. I'm not going to kill a child's. To which Fancy would just say that that is perfectly fine. He wasn't asking him to. What he wants him to do is to bring him to him, so as to study things a bit more. The man actually deciding to do so, turning to see that Deku is awake. Walking back over and doing something Deku found a bit confusing. The last words Deku hears before he falls unconscious once again is that he is sorry. But before he can even finish his sentence, Deku falls unconscious. The man finishing his sentence. A job is a job. So, Deku would wake up, well, roughly around a couple hours later, finding himself to be in another one of these places. Realizing what's going to happen, Deku actually being a bit annoyed. He is basically strapped down to a chair and another one of these devices strapped over his head. Fancy actually explained to Deku that the last time they used his quirk, they found leaps and bounds above what they've ever gone to. So, your quirk is going to be what brings our little secret to light. Do you understand, boy? Your quirk, it is going to help us usher in the new era of mankind, especially with these pieces. Deku not really understanding what he means, as weird code begins to go throughout Deku's mask, or at least his visor. Deku trying to turn it off. He has been heavily sedated, and they are trying to do tests with his quirk. Usually trying to test out their more improved tech, throughout most of the days, some of their weaponry, and quite possibly cybernetics, getting Deku to control certain things. An arm, usually a leg, or even quite simply, a different eye, basically working like a camera for Deku. Until eventually they would have to stop these tests. And Deku would usually fall asleep, and or pass out, usually overexerting his quirk for the day, until they would rinse and repeat, more and more and more. Deku usually building a more, well, high drug tolerance and having a bit of a caretaker, along with Fancy actually walking into the room sometimes and talking with Deku directly, explaining things, along with Deku actually being shown pieces of Eden, or at least files they have. Usually these are being run across the screen, along with, well, other things. As Deku tries to do another system hack. Anytime he tries to do this, they usually stop him. So, will this work today? Deku actually trying, and being met with resistance. They've been upgrading their security to high levels. In fact, this is close to government degree. Encryption. Deku understanding some of it. Along with his visor basically messing up in his eyes. As Deku at least tries to mess with Fancy. Shutting off most of the equipment in the room. As Deku listens for his voice. And spits in his face whenever he finds it. Fancy being annoyed. Socking Deku across his face and pulling him out of the chair. Basically giving Deku much needed discipline. Along with painful test. So, exactly what type of technology can Deku test and get away with? They would be finding out, as Deku's Hell Month would turn into another year of this type of shit. Momo just looking back at Deku, asking about that scar on the back of his neck then. Is that from everything? Yeah, actually. I was just about to mention it. This little baby on the back of my neck is an animus scar. What's an animus? Basically, they think, hey, you're someone special, correct? Well, let's see if we can try looking into your head and finding genetic memories of your ancestors. Hey, something's gotta be there hidden, right? So they tried to test a prototype. You ever have a needle as big as a blade stabbed in the back of your neck? It's not fun. Especially when it's at the direct base of your brainstem. You never forget it. Along with being stuck in that machine. I don't know my ancestors. I don't know what they did or who they were. They were normal people. As far as I could tell. They just wanted to make a living. My great-great-grandfather. Whenever quirks were popping up, he discovered his. I think it was on my dad's side. Or probably my mom's. All he remembers is walking out to his car one day, going to put a key in, and all of a sudden, the alarm starts going off. How crazy was he? Thought he was crazy. It was actually really intense and cool. But even then, it's not the worst part. They kept going back further and further and further. 1700s, 1500s. I'm not sure where they were going, what they were looking for. In fact, they were actually quite a bit mad. Especially whenever they had to try and improve my tech, as they call it. Sending in the bigger blade. Basically a metal spike. Stabbing it directly into my neck so that I could completely interface with the Animus and use my quirk. I only remember about a week's worth of it, but stuck, immobilized to a chair, English, this mythical bullshit running across my screen that I don't understand. Anytime I noticed a letter or anything, the machine would just beep, pick up on it. That's probably how they reverse engineered it, because of me. All I know is, sometime around then, an explosion occurred, and this man in the mask was back. Funny thing is, mercenaries, their only allegiance is to the cash. So, someone put a higher price on my head, and he wanted that money. All I remember is him butchering everyone else in the room, and setting me free. Pulling the spike from my neck, and carrying me out. Put me in the backseat of the car as we drove away. The place up in flames. I thought Fancy was dead, but he wasn't. Funny thing was, he thought I was unconscious. I wasn't. That pain sticks with me every day. I still feel it. But, lucky me, bag full of handguns. I took one and aimed it directly at his head. He just looked at me and didn't say a word. I pulled the trigger. He died. Car gets sent flying off the road and smashes into a tree. All I remember is taking the bag and running. About an hour or so later, Mummy found me. He found me because he was looking around the previous area that I was taken. Turns out we weren't too far away from it. Even then, when the police report came back that a car crashed and the same mercenary was found dead, apparently he came to the area immediately, thinking or at least praying to find me. Momo was just a bit confused. To which Deku would just say, this man in the mask had the jump kit technology. He believes in prototype. He may have stolen it from the organization, he doesn't know. Sturgo has a fucked up sense of humor. But he does at least know one thing. He stopped trusting a lot of people after that day. He didn't go outside for about a solid 3 months afterwards. Stayed inside, stayed training. Tried to tinker and actually mess around with the jump kit. Eventually I created what I'm pretty sure this is version 14. As Momo would just finally pull off the highway. Saying that that's quite a long story. But hey, that won't happen ever again. You understand, right? Next time you're set in a hospital room, go for the eyes. Deku somewhat just laughing, as Toko finally revealed that she's awake, faking a yawn and rolling over, asking what's going on. To which Momo would just say that they've been driving for a couple of hours. Her being confused for a second, or at least acting, saying and asking why is Momo driving, her explaining it, and it being a bit cool to her. So, their entire road trip, it's still going. Momo and Toga actually switching seats. Deku rolling over in the back seat, deciding to get some sleep of his own. It's been a busy day, and he could use the shut-eye. Now, that is going to be where I leave this part off of, guys. I do hope you enjoyed the video, and have an amazing day. I'll catch you guys in the next part.